right, I'm going to go ahead and get the ULA Governing Board Meeting started. The time is 9:02, and we'll just go ahead and start with our introductions today. We're going to excuse Senator McKell, Representative Brammer, and Dan Hammer today. They had other engagements, so they couldn't be here today. And as you make your introductions, if you could speak clearly and a little bit loudly, because we have one central microphone. So, would you mind going ahead and starting, and we'll just go around the room? Thank you.
I'm John Mackey, I'm the Director of the Division of Water Quality.
Morning, I'm Ben Steyer, I'm the Southern Lands Program Administrator.
I'm Bill Lee, County Commissioner.
I'm Mayor Michelle Capuzzi, Mayor of the Provo.
Curtis Blair, President of the Utah Valley Chamber of Commerce.
I'm Hillary Hungerford, a Governor's Office appointee, Utah Valley University.
Thank you. Julie Fulmer, I serve as the Mayor of Vineyard.
Jay Marshall, City Council members present. Eric Ellis, Executive Director of the Lake Commission and ARPA Lake Authority and Secretary of this board.
Jerry Peterson, I serve on the Farm City Council.
I'm Sam Breaker, I'm the Programs Manager for the Utah Lake Authority.
And then we have a few people online. If I don't have a list of people online.
We have 2 board members online.
Sam, did you want to go ahead and call out their names and have them introduce themselves?
Sure thing. Chris, can you go first? You look like you're unmuted already. Then Carolyn, if you would go after him.
Sam, the audio is pretty rough, but this is Chris Karn with the Saratoga Springs City Council, if you can hear me.
We can. Thanks, Chris. And then Carolyn, you're on mute, but I believe that's Carolyn Lumber, the mayor of Linden.
Linden, well, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. And we'll also go ahead and just do our trivia moment that Eric has.
All right, we need to turn on our presentation real quick.
Yes, will do.
So at our last meeting, I discovered that not everybody in the board has come from the Lake Commission and has years of experience on the lake. So I thought, oh, let's start introducing the board a little bit to Utah Lake, and we thought we'd do a few different trivia items. So we start out. Anyone have any idea what the largest fish was caught on Utah Lake? And this is also a state record. Or what type of fish would you suspect it to be? Any guesses? Not a carp. Not a cutthroat, although if we were keeping records back in the day, it probably would have been one of those. It is a channel catfish. And back in '78, it was 32 pounds, 8 ounces, and 39 3/4 inches long. We didn't have a picture of it, so I pulled up a picture of a similar size channel cat that was caught in New York. These are the types of fish that are in Utah Lake. People don't realize it's such an amazing fishery. It's an amazing fishery. Anyone know how many access points are on Utah Lake? Public access points. 7. Nice. We have a winner.
Is the commissioner?
It was.
Well, all right.
We have a site or a page on our webpage, utah.lake.org/access points. And it has all 27 listed. We've broken them up. You know, the colors are really just kind of segments of the lake, so that when you go on the webpage, you can kind of look at those ones and figure out which one you want to go to. There's photos. We still have a video tour on how to get to them. So you can take a high-speed zoom with a GoPro so that you won't get lost on your way up to these access points. I have 3 name that place. So can anyone name this location? Ben Steyerman for the win. This is right on the side of the Utah Lake State Park, and it's the Provo River heading out into the lake. Mayor, nice part. Linden Marina. So this is a unique perspective of Linden Marina. It took me a minute to zoom in and figure out what that building was. It's the general store and little shop that Ron Madsen has down at the Marina. Anyone recognize this spot? The key to it is who said this? Oh, no, not Sandy Beach, Lincoln Beach. So the rocks, there's a warm spring that filters out on Lincoln Point. It's not a hot spring. Don't think that you can swim in it in the winter, but it keeps this little area liquid in the wintertime. And so fish congregate there, anglers congregate there as well as a result of the wintertime. Really cool spot. Okay. I guess
That wrap up our.
that wraps up our trivia for the
Good
day.
job. Okay, well, we'll move on to our action items. We need to review and approve the fiscal year 2023 budget. We do need sort of presentation on that review.
I can bring it up again so that there's just a few items on that. Per the statute, we have access to a small portion for employer wages and benefits. So 170,000 total for that through the bill. 246,000 was provided as dedicated credits for attorney work. That doesn't mean that it all has to be used, but we can kind of use that on an as needed basis. And the plan right now is that we'll be splitting an assistant attorney general with one of the divisions within DNR. And we're working on getting that individual hired or at least directed to that assignment. And then the last is 425,000 for consulting services, and this will be for the management plan and for branding work for the Lake Affiliate. So when we complete those, or we'll discuss the management plan here a little later. But when we've gotten that to a stage where we can deliver that to the public, that will be the kind of green light on the remainder of that appropriation. And we will hold another budget hearing down the road when we get to that point for the remainder on implementation of that project.
Any questions, any discussion, any budget? No, if not, can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion that we reviewed and we approved the fiscal year 2023 budget as proposed.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee. Can I get a second? I'll second. Thank you, Mayor Lucy. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We also need to talk about our bylaws. Hopefully you've had time to review them. These are the same bylaws that we had at our first meeting with some minor changes. It was brought to our attention that although we didn't change how we call for elections or bring people together for the chair and the vice chair position, we didn't ratify that in that meeting. So that may be something that comes on a future agenda to make sure that we just checked off all of the boxes and made sure that we did that in appropriate order. So today we'll be ratifying the bylaws, and then on a future agenda, we can have more discussion on if we got everything crossed or T's and crossed our I's. Any questions on that?
So, yeah, I
Yes,
can-
please.
So, we first approved the law. So first we need to approve the bylaws, and then we elect the chair and address it, is that correct?
Yeah, that is, from what I understand from the AG's office, that's the ideal pattern. Because of the way our bylaws are written, and we have been 7.2, I believe, is the marker where it says you're supposed to do that on the first day. I think we need to go back and talk to the AG's office to just make sure that we're doing everything appropriately. So it may be that we hold the election again in a future meeting, or it may be that we ratify it at some later point, but because the Open and Public Meetings Act, we're not going to do that on this agenda. So we're just going to focus on ratifying these bylaws and talking about it in it.
Because that's my next question. We need to have the AG's office, make sure we're doing this.
Yeah, we want to make sure everything is above board and that we start out on the right foot. So, yeah, thank you for that clarity. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner.
I've got a number of questions. If we look at 5.3.8, I'm not quite sure what that is the responsibilities of the board. Would that be clarified? I don't know if it's written in a way that is understandable, but it says to render advice, technical assistance on the request of board members in regard to local government problems having an impact on the development and protection of Utah Lake. So this is under responsibilities of the board. So the board, if I was to read it that way, the board is to render advice and technical assistance on requests of board members. So I'm just, it reads kind of clunky to me. I'm just wondering what the intent is there.
Yeah.
I think the idea behind that is that the board acts as a board. So when we're discussing issues that one community might be having that pertains to the lake shore and some project on it, we can get other board member advice on how they've dealt with that similar issue. And so it's kind of the board acting as a team or as a board to flesh out ideas and issues that others are having with stuff they've already done.
Okay. Does that focus on the problem, or bring it up?
You bring it out on the board and Commissioner Lee says, actually, 5 years ago, we worked on this very same thing. This is how we addressed it.
Okay.
So you were all experts in your own realm, and it capitalizes on that expertise to share with the rest of the board dealing with this information.
So it really is the board advising the board members on this. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That
Or more staff providing that information back to staff.
and then that,
Commissioner, was there any clarity?
no, I think that makes sense now, if that's the intent of it, but when I read it, I thought, is the board advising technical and so forth on the board? And anyway. The second one, under Article 6, under membership, it has 15 members under there, but when I count up the numbers, there's only 14. And there's one real sensitive one to me that's missing. The commission's not up there. It's not listed.
Well, we will add that. It's listed on the
It's listed
bill.
in, it's listed in the
Somehow
bill.
we have,
So I went back to the bill and looked at it, and I thought, well, I must, it's gotta be in there somewhere. I read it like 3 or 4 times trying to see if it was
we
in
will,
there somehow, but it's not listed in there as a board member.
So we'll need to add that in the stipulation in the function.
Yeah.
Okay,
So that needs to be added. And then, just look through the notes. If you go to, let me see what section this is. This is under Article 10, board meetings. Oh, no, never mind. This is the note that I saw on there. I was wondering if we were following Robert's rule, but as I got to the end, I realized that we had that. I just, that's not one. Article 2, under committees. I know we have the board shall appoint an advisory committee, one or more technical committees, one or more local government groups, and one or more stakeholders. Is it possible for us, as we're setting these bylaws up, to also organize what I call a citizens committee, where members, board members, each board member can appoint one member to the citizens committee, such as because I was reading down through that, I didn't see that. I saw a bunch of advisories, technical, local government groups, and stakeholders.
yes. But so the board has the ability to assign whatever committees it sees or deems fit. So it is not limited to just that list. It is,
Right.
it's open to having that. Yes, for
So
sure.
I would propose that if the board members would be inclined to it, that it would be one where every board member has the ability to pick somebody to be on that citizens.
did you want to specify that in the bylaws, or do you feel like that criteria is met here?
I think we should specify
Do we have to have one?
that we shall have. I think it'd be great to have a citizens committee. Just on an advisory basis.
Is there any discussion on that? Questions?
So we can choose anyone that we want,
Yep, board member.
and it doesn't require approval.
Just the every board member give it to whoever they-
We would probably send out a request for that and give some helpful criteria to in the selection of those individuals, not, prescriptive, but rather just helpful ideas. I know that when we participated on other citizen type committees, they put out a request and said, hey, we have somebody, here's what we're looking for, someone that's passionate about it, somebody that is connected to that resource. And those types of things that we can help guide that selection process.
Did we?
Well, I just have a question. Is this something that is separate from who we may deem as our alternate, or could this individuals?
Oh, that's a good point, Mayor. I don't know, that's a good point to bring up, because I think our board positions, some of them are tied to elected officials. So does that mean that if they're an alternate, that they're also of the same elected position, or, an elected official? Or does that mean that the alternate can be somebody other than what the criteria says?
Right. I don't know if they're two separate things.
I think they're two separate things. So the first thing I think we need to decide this, do we want to wordsmith how we want that in here today, or do we want to give that back to staff to wordsmith something to add in?
Yeah, add a citizens committee on the definition page. Specifically.
Under the committees, Article 2.
Under Article 2.2.
So we could pass it today and then have it amended in the next meeting.
Okay, and then your question.
The alternate language is in 6.2. And I don't know if you want to clarify
Yeah.
there in regards to, elected official must have their alternate be elected official. They're going to be voting for.
So that's a good question, because I believe in the last board meeting that somebody felt uncomfortable with the idea that we could appoint people to this position. So I think however you guys feel comfortable, and we can make sure that it's more clear.
And this was a question that I brought up with the Assistant Attorney General, and they, at the time, didn't feel like there needed to be that clarification specifically, simply because whoever the alternate is speaking on behalf of that entity, and if the primary individual has the authority to assign an alternate, then it's someone that can also speak on behalf of that entity. And so it's
So that's the
if
constraint.
a mayor chooses a citizen to speak on behalf of the city, then it's not our position to be saying, no, you can't do that.
So it
And
would-
presumably, they're going to pick somebody that's an elected official as their alternate, or someone that has a similar position to them in the organization.
I think what Eric's bringing up is some of the Attorney General's office needs to weigh in on too. If we can even appoint someone who's not an elected official.
Well, and it seems like, if I'm understanding you correctly, or if you did talk to the AG's office, their clarity was, we're going to leave that to be individual board members to determine who is the local representative.
Because much in the same way, the elected body of each municipality or the leadership of the non-elected officials select and go through a selection process for their representative. So they would go through the same process to select an alternate if they so choose to do that.
Did you want to tighten up the language so that it says it has to be somebody that's given those powers to represent the community, or do you feel comfortable with the broad language of the AG's office?
Well, I think one of the concerns is that this body has elected accountable representatives representing some of the decisions, and so yeah, I believe that to the other elected officials in the field, they were in the position that they could come to your portfolio. They felt like that's important, that is a fellow council member. Just like to
How
ask.
does that work if some folks on this board are elected officials?
True.
So how does that work?
I think that was why our assistant attorney general said, we're gonna leave, it can be done if the board is okay with it. They can select an alternate and I would presume that each one of you are careful enough in that sort of assignment that you're choosing someone who you are comfortable with speaking on your behalf. So
So that would make it, there would be two separate write-ups for elected officials that are on the board and non-elected officials that are on the board.
we were
I like that it's,
Yeah.
trust us. Well, we won't put someone on board that doesn't.
We considered alternates being non-voting members and that throws it for a loop. And so the decision, that in talking with the assistant attorney general was if they would like to choose an alternate, because regularly they're not present, DNR utilizes Ben in many cases for this. And Ben is the sovereign lands coordinator, very capable of making decisions and coordinates directly with the head of DNR and directly with their division. And that works just fine. And so again, these alternates are being selected because they are someone that can be trusted. And if any one of them doesn't have any person in the organization that fits that role, also you don't choose an alternate.
I think just the thought is accountability,
Agreed.
the residents at large, like there's accountable individuals, so.
Chair.
But potential key decisions.
Sure. Sorry to interrupt. Mayor, Chris Carnall, I just mentioned he's having a really hard time hearing anybody.
Oh,
So if
okay.
everybody can please speak a little bit louder, I'm sure he's wanting to hear this conversation.
Chris, is there anything that you need us to repeat? Or do you have any questions on the content that suddenly you can hear or went missing?
No, I think we'd have to go back too far. So I'm following along best I can.
Okay,
So this board doesn't approve or vote on this membership, right? The municipality that sent you does that vote precisely. So it seems like I have now the authority to appoint my alternate, and I need to be responsible in who I send in my stead, and votes in the way that I want them to vote, I suppose. And it's up to the board member to make sure that that's happening. So
well, in your city, told you accountable if you
Absolutely.
pick somebody, if they didn't feel this.
Right.
So there's that.
yeah, it seems like there's checks and balances in place, and it's up to the individual board member to make sure that have the right representation.
I also.
The committee meeting,
I would encourage, if possible, that the individual is selected as the alternate. Perhaps it's a different individual that is selected as a member of the citizen committee. I can see wisdom in having those two separate people.
definitely, it feels like we're using to put two things together that don't really apply. Committees don't vote, the committees like give advice to the board.
So my concern is being consistent with the way that this was set up. And it was set up very specific that, in some of these that we read down through, it says, I'll just read one of them, says at least 4 members appointed by the Utah County Council of Governments. Okay. My concern is being consistent with the way the board was set up originally. And there's a lot of shall in there, and whenever it says shall, that always makes me nervous. And so when it says, at least 4 members, this is 6.1.4.3, at least 4 members appointed by the Utah County Council of Governments shall be elected officials from municipalities immediately adjacent to the lake lake authority boundary. And so when I see that shall in there, I'm wondering if you fall under whatever category it is, maybe we should go back to that same legislative body or whoever doing that appointment and get an alternate that comes from that same group. That way it would still fall under, so you're not appointing anybody. It's somebody that falls underneath the same criteria that you would.
So there could be two ways. We could say according to the statute, or we could make something that says we go back to all of the cities or areas and have to fill out a form for a possible alternative.
I think that the right solution, because we're not soliciting alternates, is that we just insert per the statute, each member may designate in writing an alternate, or better said, each member may designate in writing an alternate following the statute for that representative seat.
So in our case, where we have 3 commissioners, it'd be from the legislative body, and would wind up being an alternate, would be somebody from that legislative body that body has chosen as the alternate. Yeah, which was chosen originally as the board.
Okay, any questions on that? Does everybody feel comfortable with that stipulation? Or, I mean, you'll get to vote on it, so. But I just want to make sure that we're having a robust conversation.
Yeah, and I think that meets the purpose of this created body, that we keep it an accountable elected balance with any votes or decisions that are made.
Right. Thank you for that point. Right, any other discussion on our bylaws?
Back to these citizen committee, where are we at with that?
Determination.
Yeah,
On Article 2.2, we're just adding citizens committee as one of the advisory committees that are listed there.
Are you talking about specifically how we would coordinate that?
no, I'm just.
So.
Yeah, I get, so that will allow us to do that, make us. We would have a discussion around makeup of that, the chart of that, the reason behind it, like. I want to know what we're doing before we appoint the citizens body.
Yeah, it would be from May.
Yeah, and none of this in here is a shall. It just defines the committee as one of those committees. Yep. And then under committee, that's how it's established, which is a vote by the board. So it's not just anybody who's a person's point there. We could nominate anybody, but the board will still vote. Is that right?
I mean, it could be. However, we determine how to build.
It opens the door for that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's, I'm fine with opening the door.
Okay,
6 of them.
okay, yes, great.
If I can just speak for a moment, I think Provo cities with their separation of powers are a little different. As I recall, the statute allows the mayor. It doesn't say, I think there was even a discussion at one point it said Provo City, now it says the mayor chooses who sits on this, and she's chosen to sit on it herself. And in our situation, where the mayor suddenly at 3 o'clock can't be at this meeting, for her to try to find a council member who can be up to speed and come and address these issues is cumbersome. If you want representation of the mayor, it's easier. She's not bound to pick an elected official, but can choose me who's at all these meetings and so where we're at on these things and let me come, or whoever else she chooses. It's just a different wrinkle than in some of the other situations. I just thought that should be taken into account.
Well, and it sounds like it accounts for that as you get to pick who it is and make that determination. So I think from my standpoint, I feel comfortable with that. Because you're following it for the statute. So does you feel comfortable with that?
As long as that allows that the mayor can appoint who she wishes, then that would be, that would allow her to not choose an elected official, even though that language up above says elected official. And, you know, so for in the first instance, she needs to choose an elected official for this. But if she chooses herself, then I think it would be appropriate if she can choose a staff member.
Different.
To be her alternate.
A strong mayor, no one else in the county has that. So our form of government is just so different that it would not tie me up.
And the statute acknowledges that.
It sounds like for statute, it would fit.
Yep.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, if there's none, we just need an approval, and it looks like we have 3 stipulations in that motion.
The third one, I have citizen.
I have the designee, the citizens commission, and then adding the commissioner position.
Oh, yes.
Sorry. You forgot again.
It's written down, I just couldn't see it.
It's really, is the AG office gonna sign off on that? I mean, more with this.
Sure, and we can put that in the stipulation, saying, hey, we just want to confirm it with the AG's office that we've done this.
Just to make sure.
Does everybody feel comfortable with that? Yeah, I mean, add, what, if you want to make the motion and you want to add that in to the stipulation, go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I do make that motion that the AG office review the changes and review the current bylaws to make sure that's compliant with state law.
Awesome. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you for this. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Question,
Yes, please.
is that, was there an approval of the bylaws in that motion?
My guess, oh,
Chair Fulmer,
please.
Chris?
sorry, I did not place a vote. I'm not comfortable voting at this time. I'm going to abstain because I cannot follow the conversation well enough.
We apologize for that, Chris, and thank you for making us aware of it. Would you like me to restate something so that you feel like you could make
No,
a vote?
no, I can't follow. I just cannot follow anything anybody's saying. I'm trying, but I can't vote on this. I'm not following the conversation well enough.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Does that mean that we still have the right amount of people?
We can use our position for-
Okay.
You want me to make, a motion in addition to that? I think to clarify what you're talking about with stipulating 3 changes.
Yeah, sure.
think
I mean, unless Terry, you wanted to take another stab at it, group the bylaws with the 3 stipulations and the AG's office to review each of those things. And the stipulation, so this is an approval by Terry Peterson for the bylaws with the stipulation of adding a commissioner position. I forget which number it was, but according to our discussion, the commission, the council, or the citizens commission or committee, and the designee, and then as a 4th stipulation to have the AG's office review it and make sure that it conforms to our statute. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Terry made that motion. You
I will still second it.
still second it. All in favor? Aye. Chris cannot vote because he can't follow the conversation. Any opposed? None. All right. Thank you so much. That is carried. We'll go on to our next agenda item, which is to review the initial vision and input from the board members. And Eric, you can just kind of start flowing through this, and then we'll talk about the Lake Commission history, and then we will have our ARPA appropriation presentation by Director Malcolm. Thank you for being here.
Okay, so we're getting close on the RFP to go out for management creation. So I wanted to just review the comments that we got at our last board meeting. Based on these few questions that we threw out. So this is the top 3 lake reservoir characteristics you look for a task with planning a multi-day trip for the summer. So clean lake, these are all, you've all seen word clouds before. There's the repetition of comment from board members caused the font to increase in size. So sandy beaches, great fishery, shady places, recreational amenities. And then some of these outlying attributes that all can be incorporated in as we work on a management plan. Long-term changes or enhancements that we would love to see implemented on the lake. Again, I'm seeing a trend with cleaner lake. More public access, that's a very doable thing, and it's something that we're working hard on creating more public access and improved public access.
And I think that improved piece is a huge part because 3 7 access points, but a lot of those you have a 4-wheel drive.
Yes.
So
So making each one of those better in its, for its own uses. Better recreational amenities, again, we have access points. We're working, over time, I think that we will probably find additional access points. But more importantly, we need to make these much better so that people's experience is great when they go to those. And remove invasive species, more lakefront businesses, and then a couple of these outlying ones, improve wildlife diversity, lower entrance fees, improve public perception. All things that we can certainly work towards. Over the next 5 to 10 years, what would our top 3 goals be? More or better recreational amenities, top idea. Protecting native species, that is something that we do a lot of work on, and with our partners, very much an emphasis. Improve public perception. This one takes lots and lots of work and some time. Improve water quality. We're just tasking John with that. And we're working hand in hand to see if we can make these the lake's water quality improve over time. Also, it really is a long-term endeavor. Improving water quality is not an overnight thing. We have materials in the bed of the lake. We have sources that are out of our control. We have sources that are within our control. And we're developing a plan through this water quality study to address as many of those as we can. Okay, so as I mentioned at the beginning, I wanted to just, this is not a long version of the history of the lake or the commission, but wanted to just kind of bring everybody up to speed on where we have come from on Utah Lake. As you know, Utah Lake used to be part of Lake Bonneville. It was enormous. It's the last remaining freshwater portion of that basin. There's tons of history surrounding Utah Lake. It has been a draw for early humans and settlers because of its water source in the middle of a super arid part of the country. And back in 2007, the Lake Commission was formed. This was after the Water Quality Act had been signed, and there had been a lot of, I think, efforts to create something like the commission or something like the authority for years, and they were finally able to bring that together and form that in 2007, unifying the communities around the lake, county and state agencies towards the idea of improving this amazing resource. Over the years, there's been lots of people or anthropogenic caused issues on Utah Lake. We've got a lot of nutrient pollution in the lake. Temperature elevation changes have occurred over time because of the management of the water sources above the watershed. And today we have fairly frequent algae blooms taking place on the lake. A lot of those, especially in the summertime, are harmful algal blooms or cyanobacterial blooms. And it's something that is not unique to Utah Lake, but it is something that there are solutions for out there, and we would like to mitigate those as much as possible. We had Geneva steel right on the lakeshore for years. Again, there was a period of time where the lake was neglected, and it's really awesome to see in recent years that has very much changed, and a focus is being placed on making it something that we prize. From a planning perspective, why are we focusing so much time and effort and sleepless nights on Utah Lake? There's a lot of pressure coming our way from a population standpoint, from a pollution standpoint, that we have to stay ahead of. We need Utah Lake to be more manageable today. When you look at the population growth estimates, more than doubling in the next 37 years, that's going to put an immense amount of pressure on Utah Lake. And in order to fix our issues today, we need to be planning for this future population growth, and so that takes some not just status quo type solutions. We very much need to be forward thinking on this. This is kind of a summary of a bunch of projects that we have going on Utah Lake. Shoreline restoration work that's been incredibly successful. We've got Phragmites that's really being tackled well. It's not gone. We're going to keep working on it, probably well into the future. But according to Forestry's evaluation, we're at somewhere around 70% of the Phragmites has been eradicated, and we have amazing native vegetation coming back. We're working even harder than ever on staying on top of that. This year, purchasing an additional marsh master with partnership with Forestry, so that our county crews will have multiple machines to be out there running all year round. We've seen some really great success with grazing, and grazing can take place not maybe everywhere on the lakeshore, but certainly there are areas where that makes sense, and we can work on increasing that opportunity where it makes sense. Walkera Way is working its way through the planning cycle, and that will be an amazing open space park for all to enjoy, with trails and more. Marina enhancements. We've got funding in place for multiple marina upgrades for creating one new marina, so that American Fork Harbor, the Linden Marina was upgraded this summer. Saratoga Springs, the South Marina is under construction right now to add a new harbor. And then we also have, I'm told that the contract is in place for starting on the creation of the North Marina. And it was a historic marina that was really tiny. That's getting grown into a more regional type marina that will be really a draw for not just Utah County, but because it's on the northernmost end of the lakes, it can draw folks down from Salt Lake County and elsewhere. The Shoreline Trail, again, making great progress on this. Shoreline trails take a lot of work. They were oftentimes require mitigation, and that it just makes it a slow, methodical process. But we have funding in place. We have agreements on a huge section of trail up on the north end of the lake, pulling together little pieces that are gaps currently, and before we can blink, figuratively, we're going to have trail from Provo Springville all the way up and around the lake down to the south end of Saratoga Springs, which will be really awesome. Having that alternate route for folks to get out, ride bikes or run and what have you. Our wetland enhancements, we're working on a wetland mitigation bank right now that will facilitate some of these trail enhancements we're looking at. We're working on algae treatments. John will talk a little bit about the ARPA grant, and a portion of that has the potential to help us with in-lake treatments. And it would be really nice. Right now, we have at least half of our marinas are on pretty strong advisories because of harmful algal bloom present in those marinas. It'd be really nice to stay on top of at least our marinas where people are most likely to be swimming every summer, so that we don't have that issue. We can be down there enjoying the lake, even if there might be some problem areas elsewhere. And then access enhancements. Vineyard City has a shoreline that is completing a master plan with some really cool amenities. Sandy Beach, Utah County project is looking beautiful. Just lots of exciting stuff happening. Here's a shot of the South Saratoga Springs Marina with the new dike almost complete. The bay there has been largely dredged out. This will be a swim beach. And then a protective cove for boats that launch, and if there's bad weather, then there's more room for boats to come in and find safe harbor. But a really cool project that will be wrapping up here probably towards the end of the year, at least with the funding that they have available. This is the marina site right here up at the north end. So this is that North Saratoga Springs Marina. It needs clearly needs some dredging and we need some water in our lake. To tie that in. But just to the south of that is the likely Nature Research Center site. Just barely off, kind of in this area here, in the picture here. Where we'll be able to do future work on studying the lake and having participation from our universities. So they have a place to come with the lab, and then we have a place for hosting meetings and getting people really excited about the lake that overlooks that lake and gives them a chance to be there and get excited about it.
Eric, isn't that also going to have a component for school children to come and do field trips and get educated?
That is the plan. So the final designs on that facility are not complete, but the idea would be that you have a lab that university students and professors could be utilizing, and then a 4th grade field trip, or even K through 12 type field trips, where they could come down and observe what's going on, potentially get their hands dirty and get involved in some research themselves, maybe in a spot just outside of that lab or a portion of the lab. But definitely a location where they have the opportunity to see restored wetlands, interacting with the lake and how those function, and see what native vegetation looks like and why it's beneficial, and learn about water systems as well. So
That would be such a great amenity to the county, and the children, they're the ones who'll spread the word.
yep, absolutely. And oftentimes those facilities, you'll have signage out on these areas. So to the north, forestry has done a phenomenal job of restoring what would it be, probably 70, 65 acres on the north side of the trail, 80s on the north.
Oh, 80 is the total property, which is
Yeah.
basically the trail.
So 80 acres of land that has been fully restored, chock full of native vegetation, just a perfect example of what can be done along the lake shore. And so they have that as an example, and then as you head east, a lot of that shoreline is looking amazing right now. So we'll be able to put them on the trail and walk them down and show them birds. And, really a cool site for this. Anything to add, Ben?
Nope.
Sandy Beach, we talked about that. There's a restroom down there now, guardrail, the road has been improved all the way out. It's a beautiful site. Everyone should go down there and just go for a walk on the beach. Right now, Sandy Beach is enormous. When the lake is not full, it is a phenomenal beach to just get out and walk down the shoreline. This is, if you go down to Springville, it's the first Springville exit, and punch it in your phone because you might not find it otherwise. It's not great signage for it. But when we head west, there's just a single turn off that main road, and it just winds you up all the way out to the lake shore. But looking really, really nice down there. Is this
The committee, I just sit on the.
okay? We'll hold there and let John take over.
Okay, great. I'm going to bring this up on my screen as well, so I can face that direction, and hopefully the folks on.
Do you want to just share the presentation for your screen as well?
Well, it's probably easier to do.
I did. Thank you. Give me just 1 second, you just said, and then you can start. I the controls, so it's not covering the screen. Okay, try now.
Sorry, try now.
With the presenter, see if that advances for you. Okay, and then the button right beneath that one, the big caret sign, that should take the slide. There you go. Yep, okay.
I'm just going to spend a couple minutes talking with you about the ARPA funding that the legislature set up for Utah lake preservation in the last session.
So $30 million were dedicated by the legislature for the preservation of knowledge. Those funds came from the ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act funds. They come with their requirements, they're federal dollars. They have their own requirements in addition to falling under the umbrella of the state revolving fund, which is a Clean Water Act program. And I want to just explain a little bit about the Clean Water Act. I know you've all heard of it. It's a very large piece of legislation, just celebrated the 50th anniversary. In fact, the assistant director of water was in Utah to celebrate. She is making the rounds through all of the regions, and for Region 8, which is 6 states, 6 western and central western states. Came to Utah to celebrate some of our projects, water restoration projects up in Weaver County. But the thing I wanted to point out about the Clean Water Act is that we at the Division of Water Quality, and this is our job to administer the Clean Water Act for the state. And we have 3 tools that we use. I think everybody knows that one of those tools is regulation. We issue permits and we regulate dischargers of water, whether it's industry, whether it's cities. And we've also worked to protect the downstream waters from those discharges through our permitting program. But there's a couple other things that we do. And one is we incentivize. And the state revolving fund is a very good example. It's really been a flagship program of the Water Act. It's a program that has originally sent a lot of grant money to the states, including Utah, to build infrastructure, to build clean water infrastructure. Back in the old days, in the 1970s, this was mostly wastewater treatment plants that were constructed. And it was all grant. And in the 90s, this program morphed and became more of a loan program. Low interest loans for clean water projects, mostly to support communities who can't afford to do it on their own, where there's a need for a clean water project. Because a lot of small communities don't have the ability to bond. They don't have the ability to generate the sorts of assistance. And so that's what the SRF has become. And along the way, the types of projects became much broader that could be funded, that were eligible for this funding. Originally, it was sort of your city wastewater treatment plant. You need to expand it because you're growing, and upgrade it because it's old and not working very well. And the third tool that we use is partnerships. There are a number of entities, types of industries, you might say, who we don't regulate, or we regulate them in a very limited way. Agriculture being a very good example. We don't issue permits to agriculture except for very limited one, concentrated in feeding operations. But we work with them and work with producers as well as other agencies, UDAP, Department of Ag and Food, to develop incentives to help agriculture do things like manage nutrients. Manage manure is another way of putting it, so that farmers can keep it on land and use it for productive purposes to keep it away from water. So what we're talking about here with the ARPA funds is sort of part of that incentive program that falls under SRF. With one real big difference. These are all grant funds. Typically, in recent years, since '94, it's been mostly the loan funds. And so it makes a really big difference. We can help a lot more communities do projects that they can't otherwise accomplish that will benefit water quality. Because you can bring money to the table that is not sort of more easily available through loans. For example, loans are paid back by these sewer bills. In some programs that you'd like to implement for clean water, you don't have that ongoing revenue coming in, fee that's directly attached to that service. So DEQ was asked to administer this competitive grant program. We're good at this. We have an SRF program that we put $30 or so million per year out into infrastructure. So we have the capabilities for soliciting bids, working with communities, helping them with all the paperwork and meeting the compliance requirements for these dollars. Change the slide and understand. Oh, that's it. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Belts and suspenders. Thank you. So in the intent language of the legislation, we identified these types of projects, and this is a pretty broad range of types of projects. Wastewater upgrades are pretty straightforward. Cities have treatment plants. Treatment plants have needs to upgrade, expand so that they can continue to accommodate the growth and continue to protect the waters. Stormwater improvements. Stormwater is a really difficult animal for us from a water quality standpoint. The permits that are established for stormwater are very different than they are for your wastewater treatment plant, because you might have one wastewater treatment plant with one pipe that we can regulate what comes out of it. But your stormwater system is generally pretty vast. There's lots of points where water is being released off the streets, on parking lots, etc., into maybe ditches, but eventually into rivers and streams and lakes of the state. I mentioned agriculture. We call that non-point source because it's not pipe. Pipe is a point source whose waste can come off in a more distributed or dispersed way and get into the water, to the stream. In lake water quality, Eric mentioned this. There's been a project that Ben's group has been working on, and we've been working together. That came out of a legislative appropriation to evaluate what can be done on the spot, what can be done in particular locations, and even more broadly, to beat back algae blooms when they occur. Marinas are a really good example. And the work that was done has really set the stage of working on identifying different treatment types, when to treat, different infrastructure that can be deployed to help reduce the amount of algae that flows into beaches and into marinas as we work on a permanent solution. Outreach and education activities are another important aspect. Allowed under our non-point source program is an eligible project identified in the intent language. And then water quality training program. There's a number of different ways. This is an innovative solution for cities and working with partner organizations to be able to really optimize to the best cost and the best benefit of the environment by forming partnerships with agreements for taking care of each other's nutrient situations. So one of the things, and I sort of keep this list in mind as I move forward. What are the eligibility requirements to provide a water quality? This list that we just went through, some things are easier to identify how they benefit water quality. And this is going to be a really important point, I think, in helping cities compete for these dollars.
easy for a wastewater treatment plant to say, we're gonna build something, we're gonna reduce the amount of pollution that goes into the water. That's pretty easy. How does somebody who wants to build an educational program compete with that? Right? I hope that everybody at least has sort of a feel that by educating children, as Mayor Kusi indicated, you know, they will spread the word, right? They will learn how to help protect the lake, and they will help others. In the proposals, this is the type of benefit that the applicants need to bring forward. If you have an education project and you're concerned about competing with somebody who's removing 10 tons a day or a year of nitrogen, you know, you have to recognize that education will produce probably the greatest benefit of all in terms of protecting our waters, and convey that to the review team. So maybe that's a little bit of salesmanship that needs to be brought out in these proposals. But I think we all agree that we believe that I believe that being able to convince a review committee that this really has equivalent greater benefit is available. It's available. There's lots of studies that can be brought forward. Yes, please.
So when are you going through this process to select the applicants? And what you have a form right now, you have that you start signing up for. I'm just thinking about we have a stormwater coalition, you know, that we work with.
Yes.
And I see stormwater up there, infrastructure. So I'm wondering what that process looks like, when it's going to start, when the applicants, when the applications are due.
Very good. Can I just hold that phone for just 1 minute? And it's either on my next slide or the following slide. Thank you for your question. So there's kind of these two big categories. Wastewater, stormwater infrastructure. That's point source infrastructure type projects allowed under the Clean Water Act. There is an eligibility document to see a wide range of types of projects that are eligible for this funding. It'll be identified in this document. Talk about non-point sources and other types of projects like education projects and trading projects are covered elsewhere. They're covered under the NPS management program. So there will be some research by communities and applicants into their projects. Some are easy, right? The eligibility for a lot of projects is obvious. This is a clean water project. There are other types of projects that you may say should be. You might have to do some digging. You might have to call my staff, or call others who are identified. Okay, application process. We will have an online application. The web team has it pretty much put together right now. There's a similar process that it is online right now. It's for a different legislative allocation for some reuse projects in southern Utah. There's a little over a month being provided to complete the application process, scoring and ranking and the mechanism by which projects will be reviewed is identified, I think, in the email that Eric sent out on Monday, and will also be included in the application. As far as evaluation, we're proposing two-step process. Have subject matter experts, and that would be people from water quality, agriculture. We talked to Eric about including Eric as one of the subject matters. We have to be a little bit careful. I think the commitment of the authority is going to be submitting applications. So we have to be a little bit careful about what we ask Eric to review, so we don't have any conflicts. And then we have identified an executive selection committee. It's a group of 3 individuals who will make the final decisions. Staff level experts will rank the projects based on the scoring strategy and then go to the executive selection. There's a little bit more detail about that in the document that was handed out. And scheduled that. So we're days away, not weeks. We're days away from having the solicitation live, having it live on our website, and there will be a broadcast, set of emails to identify potential applicants, stakeholders that will be available. Currently, we're asking for November 3rd completion, application due date. We're hoping to have decisions made mid-December. That's a lot of work. It's a lot to ask of staff and executives in the state. This process, this 2-step process, is how the governor's office ran their water and wastewater grant program under ARPA earlier this year. A couple of other important things, particularly for infrastructure projects, but it matters for everybody. The ARPA law sets deadlines, that sets firm deadlines. This one that says demonstrate progress, really it means that the money has to be obligated. You'll get a notice you have been awarded money, but you'll have to meet some requirements and paperwork, things like that, to actually have the water and money be obligated, to be fully committed. And then part of the reason we say demonstrate progress is this is a hard stop. Funds have to be expended by the end of this segment of 26. And funds would be lost. So we need to have this checkpoint between 2024 to make sure folks are moving ahead. I mean, if you've got an infrastructure project in the back of your mind, and it's a major infrastructure project, you should really think hard about whether or not you can meet that deadline. This is really set up more for shovel projects. Good plans in place. Engineering doesn't have to be done, but ultimately your construction and use of the funds, getting them into the ground, into projects, needs to be by the end of 06. I took much more time than I had hoped, but I'm ready to the questions. Yes, ma'am. Oh, sorry.
So with this being ARPA funding, are there going to be, so I know with some types of transportation funding through ARPA, there's been additional hoops to jump through, a little bit more rigorous process with potentially, presentation of paperwork and reporting because it's federal. Do you anticipate there will be a little bit more of a rigorous process?
Yes, absolutely. It's federal dollars. And Mayor, I should be able to tell you exactly what all those requirements are because I know what they are in the SRF. Things like American Iron and Steel, infrastructure projects need to have American Iron and Steel. They're fairly common, typical federal requirements. Actually, they have fewer of those requirements on the ARPA money than they have, for example, on the bill bipartisan infrastructure law. But yes, there are still those types of strings. They do affect the cost of your project. It depends on the type of project. We have found that if you have a lot of steel in your project, then there's a 4%, maybe if there's a lot of steel, 10% increase in the cost of the project. If it's all plastic pipe, then you don't have American steel. So you're not taxed with that. One of the ones I apologize, I should know, is often the federal government, particularly this administration, would have labor requirements, Davis-Bacon labor requirements. And in Utah, the cost of labor as a result of that requirement is usually not very much. Our wages are higher than what are on the Department of Labor's books. But there's an administrative cost. There's a record keeping cost. Contractors are good at managing that. They have systems for managing that, but it is an additional cost.
And do you see this $30 million tranche kind of like a one-time opportunity? And
Near
it's not,
term?
and is it going to be, if it's not all, allocated or deployed, does it? Will there be, funds going forward that could be, applications can happen again if it's not deployed?
Sure. So these are grant funds, so they won't come back and revolve. Our Clean Water Act, Clean Water SRF state revolving fund, most of that money is loans, and so it goes out into projects and then it gets paid back, right? Principal plus interest is paid back. Yes.
I guess the one exception to that is that in the grant paperwork that you guys receive, there's a period of time in which it has to be expended, and if it's not, then it jumps back in the cost and gets reallocated to other projects, but that's unlikely.
Is that your question?
I guess I was asking
Funds to be
two questions.
lost.
Yeah.
So, this is not the kind of thing that we do, that we want to do, that we like to do. So, my staff is pretty good at counting applicants, recipients on these projects, as well as, in the evaluation up front, the level of readiness is important. This is something that your application should convey. Ready to go? Ready to put boots on the ground, or still evaluating alternatives. It makes a difference. We would work very hard to make sure nobody loses money.
What is the required match?
Oh, the match depends. It depends on the size of the project. It's in the documents that I sent you, and if you'd like, we could probably bring it up. But it goes something like this. If your project is $150,000 or less, the match is 10%. If your project is, what's the upper end?
Million.
Pardon?
$1 million.
What's the top end? I was going to
10 million.
skip the middle ones. If it's
30,
if it's 30 million,
I feel like, I can't remember.
the match goes up to an 80% requirement. So it's graduated. So early, the smaller projects, less match, 10%, small projects, probably up to $1 million, that's probably 20%. So if you'd like, I can pull it up on my computer.
It was 10 or more was 8%.
Yeah, I think it's 10 or more is 80%. So that's a big project.
Well, and we can make sure that gets back out to everybody so that.
So I checked my email and that did go out to this whole board. I can't, it's a big file, so it won't let me include it to forward it to you, but if you check your email, it was listed as ARPA grant RFP for discussion at ULA Board. And it was sent, I think, Monday, yes. This morning.
Okay, are there any further questions?
This is just for this area. It's not the state, it's just the 30 million is just for.
Great question. Great question. Yeah, it's for the Utah Lake watershed. And there's been some questions about that I'll go ahead and raise if I may, Madam Chair. I'm not sure where we are in time, and I apologize if I'm
You're okay.
taking
That's
you
fine.
to-
I think it's a relevant question too that everybody should understand.
So the watershed reaches outside of the county. And so with some agriculture questions, agriculture projects, there has been the question, does it fit? And our answer, since we chose the watershed, since the legislature chose watershed, is yes, but it's a qualifier yes. The big driving factor in all of these projects is what's their impact to water quality. And the farther away you are, the harder it is to be able to demonstrate that. So I think if there was a large agricultural operation above Deer Creek, who could really make a difference in Utah, that we would want to know about. We would want to know about that. But I really think that the goal is to have this be to the cities. I really think that's.
Thank you so much. Aaron, we'll go ahead and move into your executive director's reports. Since Representative Brammer can't be here, and you are reporting on 6 and 9.
Okay. So we've got a list here that we'll send out. We're going to pull together a working group for the management plan development. The purpose of that will be to gather information, provide study and analysis, serve as a deliberative forum for diverse points of view. The work group will make recommendations and provide viewpoints and insights that can help the ULA board and other officials. We'll send out this kind of guiding document on what that looks like. It describes what the member duties will be. So we'll have some work group meetings, some field trips and so forth. And so our vision of that is that it would either be one of you, our board members, or someone from your organization that has a lot of ties to Utah Lake and could really help kind of guide the creation of our management plan. We will have a consultant that's an expert in the field that can be the expert, so to speak. But we definitely want opinions and ideas during the working stages of that creation, so that what we bring back to this board for final approval is something that everybody can be really excited about and support. So yes, both of these documents will get sent out shortly. Walker Way Steering Committee, just a point on here. That committee, the steering committee portion of that is Utah County, MAG, Forestry, Fire and State Lands, Lake Authority, Vineyard, Orem, and Provo. Are we missing anybody that should be on the Walker Way Steering Committee? Does anybody else feel they ought to be participating on that or would like to?
Lyndon is close to that, and we're keenly interested in continuing that trail.
Okay. And I'll reach out to you after for who your representative would be. Anyone else? Okay, I just want to make sure that we had that. That project is a big project, and getting good feedback is helpful. I'm moving that. Yes, Ben.
I think having the BLM wise, since they're likely to have a stake in land ownership, and then possibly some representation from one of the families that still needs to have a claim.
Yep. Okay, thank you. As far as the report, Lake Authority status, the board, as you all can see since you're here, is in place. On the 20th of this month, we finalized our contract with Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. They're the entity that was handed off the appropriation for the Lake Authority. And we had to establish our corporation and go through quite a few different hoops in order to get that set up, but that's set up now. And we've invoiced them. We can invoice them for all that we need for now, 90% of the total amount. And then the last 10%, we can invoice them in January. So we'll do that as soon as we're eligible to do so. But that's all set up. We're getting ready to put out the RFP for the master plan creation. It's to a degree a little bit vague in that it references the statute as the guiding document for what we are expecting them to help us create. And then we go through some detail of what that's going to look like. Initially, just to get your feedback, the plan is to create a conceptual management plan as part of a two-stage process. So conceptual management plan, and then an implementation portion to that that we do second, so that we can put our consultant to work and have a product that's ready, that has the consideration of a variety of entities as per the statute. In fact, that document that I'll send out has who we need to consult with and who we need to collaborate with. Identified, and we're going to be reaching out to them to get representatives for those. But it'll help us put that kind of concept management plan in place that can be adopted, and we can hit the road running. And then that implementation side of it will flesh out the various different concepts in our management plan so that we have exact detail on how to operate that. One thing that I would add to that is that we're in discussions right now with the Institute of Land, Water, and Air to be kind of a facilitation for vetting the implementation ideas that we put in our plan, so that we have a collaborative body of scientists that can weigh in on the various different approaches that we're taking, to be sure that we have well thought out, well planned, science vetted projects in the hopper as we move forward. So we've reached out to the director of that institute, and they are really excited to partner with us on that. That is the purpose of that institute, is to be a gathering body for science. And so it'll be a fun partnership, and we'll explore the details of that and bring those to the board in subsequent meetings. And then I think we've mentioned this, but we're working with Forestry, Fire and State Land and the Department of Natural Resources to figure out an assistant attorney general that can be shared between us and an agency that's kind of unrelated to Utah Lake over at DNR, so that we have separate representation for the two entities going forward. And we would split time with that other division, since at this point it's unlikely that we would need them full time. And so it would be nice to be able to share or split the cost of that position between another division. And from what I'm told, a number of the divisions have lots of need for additional assistance in the legal side of things. So it shouldn't be hard to be able to find that right pitch. Just from a transition standpoint, wanted to clarify that the Utah Lake Commission is continuing to operate. There's a lot of projects that we mentioned earlier that are underway. We're doing field trips here in the fall. We've got volunteer activities, contests, fishing tournaments, all that we had a great desire to keep functioning while we're getting this Utah Lake Authority management plan and so forth all up and running. So that's all taking place simultaneous to the creation of the Utah Lake Authority. Just more details on it. I wanted to bring to your attention that we have a conflict of interest and disclosure form as part of your packet. If you have not sent one of those, we did receive some of the board members just digitally sent these in. If you did get a chance to send those in and have a minute before the end of the day today, end of the meeting, you could just tear that off, fill it out, and provide it or drop it off right here so that we have a copy of those. We need those from all our board members and staff. All our staff has filled those out already, and we've got a good collection of them going. So when you have a minute, if you can fill that out. We did make an amendment to or an addition to the bylaws to incorporate the statutory language that had been summarized by the Assistant Attorney General. We've got some feedback during our last 2 months that looked sparse, and that was not the intent to be limiting that. It was simply just the Assistant Attorney General putting out kind of a standard language that is used regularly. But that has been beefed up with the statutory language as well, and that is reflected on our conflict of interest form. So we'll leave it at that, and I think
Chair, we'll probably just turn the time over to staff report.
Thank you, Chair. Just 3 slides I want to share with you all today, to share kind of our outreach efforts focused on with the commission, some of the things, as Eric already kind of described, to a history of the commission, what has accomplished, wanted to update you on some of the areas in which I and the other staff work on. So our program structure for our outreach is really divided into 3 key pillars: community events, volunteerism, and outreach and education. Most of you are probably aware, heard of, Eric mentioned a few, like our photo contest, our fishing challenges that we run. We also have the annual Utah Lake Festival, the Utah Lake Scavenger Hunt, and others. And those are designed around trying to bring people down to the lake and help them have a good and educational experience to help improve public perception and increase visitation and utilization. Under volunteerism, the Adopted Shoreline Program was started by my predecessor, I think maybe 8 years ago now, and it's operated extremely well. I'll hit on that in a minute. But a great chance for people to come down and help keep the shoreline clean and litter. As you've probably seen, as you've been to various national parks, state parks, national forests, Utah Lake is not alone in having to endure litter that's left behind. And so that's been a great opportunity for volunteers. We really appreciate all their work. We also work with BYU on their on-campus internship program and work to coordinate finding volunteers for various projects. So for example, the Pearl River Delta Restoration Project has done an amazing job of including volunteers. They have them do everything from plantings, they educate them about everything. It's really cool to see what they've done. The June Sucker program's done a great job too. So we work with those partners to help find opportunities for volunteers there. And then under outreach and education, that's what sums up most of our communications tools and some of our events. So we have our podcasts, our e-newsletter, the social media, our website, our field trips for 4th graders, and other events that are centered specifically around trying to teach people, to teach them about water safety, water conservation, water quality, habitat, wildlife, and so many other wonderful things that make Utah Lake. So that's kind of how our outreach efforts work. One particular thing moving into the Utah Lake Authority, because most of those things have all been done past as the commission and will transition into the authority. Something that we're working to refine further is our grant efforts. In the past, the Utah Lake Commission did a great job of leveraging a variety of grants, everywhere from the state parks motorboat access grant, which we just recently used to install the network of live video feeds at all 5 public marinas. DWR's Watershed Restoration Initiative and Utah Department of Agriculture and Food's Invasive Species Mitigation Fund. Those are grants we apply for every year that with partners like FSL and the county to help fund the frac mining zone. There's also the recent legislative appropriation last year that FSL did a great job of administering, that we use those dollars at the lake in a variety of projects, and that also helped fund that marine camera network project. In the past, we've also worked with other partners like the cities and such to apply for the Office of Outdoor Recreation grant and or the TTAB dollars with the county. They've been so gracious in working with us on that. So now as we're moving forward, we're starting to organize those efforts so that we can not only continue to use grants we've used in the past, but also organize additional grants that are available, both big and small. Olivia, who's our outreach coordinator, has done a great job on starting to compile a spreadsheet so that we're tracking, what time of year do different grants open and trying to pair them up as best we can, everywhere from grant dollars to help us purchase additional life jackets for our life jacket loan program, to the state parks motorboat access grant and other grants that are ongoing as well. So that's something that we're working on as staff to try and help organize to further leverage the Utah Lake Authority dollars that have been allocated and the partnership dollars that are available. And last but not least, I want to hit on one kind of cherry picking the Adopted Shoreline Program. So there's 27 public access points. Commissioner Lee did a great job putting them right on the head. And hopefully more to come, but we've had such interest in the Adopted Shoreline Program, we've actually expanded it to 45 access points, meaning public access point sections of trail along the shoreline that we've broken up into areas, as well as public parks that are right along the lake shoreline, like Sunset Beach Park and Vineyard, or Eagle Park in Saratoga Springs. So 45 areas that are available, 41 of them are currently adopted. And that's for groups that do that basically supervised by our staff, but they handle it by themselves. We have gloves and bags if they need them, but they go out by themselves as families or businesses or religious groups, and they do 3 cleanups a year. And they report to us if there's anything additional concern, vandalism, or maybe an item that's too big. Yes, heaven forbid, we did find a treadmill once that got down on the lake shoreline. They needed some help getting that. And then we also do large scale cleanups. So we've traditionally done with Vineyard City on Earth Day and others. We have the 9/11 Day of Service that we started last year and on this year as well. And we've also done international coastal cleanup day and other large scale cleanups of the lake. Another great element we really appreciate from DWR is that our program qualifies for dedicated hunter hours. So those are hunters across the state. They can submit and get into that program. They're granted a hunting tag, they're guaranteed one. But in exchange, they have to provide hours toward wildlife and habitat. And so due to most of those access points being sportsmen, fishing and hunting wildlife access points, a lot of those are taken care of by dedicated hunters who are out there avidly helping us keep that shore clean. So that's just a quick summation for you. In meetings in the future, obviously I'll continue to report on our ongoing efforts in outreach and education and recreation at the lake. But just wanted to share a few of those with you today. So I appreciate you listening. If anybody has a question, I'm happy to answer that.
Any questions? Thank you so much for all of the work that you guys have put in there. The collaboration that's gone on. It's been wonderful. We need to schedule our meetings out for the rest of the year. Our meetings are supposed to be held at 9 a.m. and on the third Wednesday of the month. And below on your sheet are a proposed list of the third Wednesdays. So November 16th, January 18th, March 15th, and so on. The next meeting location we have is.
It'll be here again.
What did you say?
Sorry, it'll be here again. I got
It'll be
confirmation
here.
yesterday that
Okay.
we're not quite ready to get down at the airport.
Okay. So we will be meeting here again. Are there any questions or comments on the proposed schedule?
I think it's great. I always get a little worried about July because that is just such a hectic time for the cities. And so on that one, I think we see where we're at. And if we don't need a meeting, that's a great one to take off the list.
Any other comments? Did you need an action on this or anything, or just kind of notification?
Maybe just verification that it works for most everybody.
Does this work for everybody? Yeah. Okay, everybody that's in the room and online.
Now, here, I have one question, all the way back to item 5. I'm sorry, I think everyone's doing so great on their presentations. It states on the agenda that it's an action item. Did we need to take a vote on that?
In conversations yesterday with legislative leadership, because this was a request by legislative leadership, they asked us to hold off on that while we get things figured out on whether or not what our interaction is with that. So at this point, we're not making it an action item as a result of that conversation.
Great question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just have one comment. If we're going to meet in this location again, should we try to get microphones? So that if any of us hearing the difficulties that were being had online, and maybe even people in the room are having a hard time hearing this as well.
Objection, thank you very much. And thank you for bringing it up. We're embarrassed to say it as well, but.
Okay.
One of the reasons why we a long time ago moved away from this particular location is because it's quite an echoey room, and I can only imagine that makes it challenging for the microphone on this thing to pick up clearly.
Pick up the comments. Yes. Yeah, thank you. We appreciate that comment and that clarity, and we will do better. All right. Thank you for that guidance. Do you feel like you have enough guidance on the meetings and the proposed schedule? Okay, and then we're gonna have a time for general comments from the public. We created a podium over here for you to come speak. You have 2 minutes for comments, and we have a limited time. So if there are any comments from the public, we'd love to hear from you. And also, Sam, if you see anybody online that's raising their hand. Okay. Okay, if you have comments, because my back is facing you, if you could just come and stand in line next to the podium, and then we will just send you one after another. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. I'm Peggy Kleimanson from Saratoga Springs. I want you all to know about a significant discrepancy in the public record that impacts the ULA. I hope the ULA takes the necessary steps to resolve this. As some of you are aware, Lake Restoration Solutions, LRS, filed for funding through an EPA program called the Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act, WIFI, in both 2020 and again in 2021. The 2021 application is waitlisted. It reads, the city of Vineyard is another public sponsor of the project and has pledged an additional $5 million loan guarantee to help secure WIPIA funding. The prior 2020 application reads identically, but references a different file name for the commitment letter. Mayor Fulmer, are those statements by LRS accurate representations of Vineyard's financial support of the LRS project? If those statements are not accurate, it's submitted that the Utah Lake Commission and its successor ULA should not do business with an entity who has misrepresented financial documents of the ULA chairperson and her city to a federal agency. Misrepresentation would be a crime under 18 U.S.C. 1001. If Mayor Fulmer did make financial commitments and her loan guarantees supporting the LRS project, as LRS states to the federal government, we request that the ULA carry out a new election for chairperson and undertake an investigation into the apparent conflicts of interest Mayor Fulmer may have with LRS. The public record appears to show that Mayor Fulmer acted on her own without the approval of her city council or RDA with regard to financial commitments made to LRS. Is that true? It only seems fair to Mayor Fulmer, the city of Vineyard, LRS, the ULA, and the public that this discrepancy is promptly resolved. Mayor Fulmer and or LRS should disclose the 2020 and 2021 letters, which LRS characterizes as loan guarantees from Vineyard, and all communications and approvals related to those letters of financial commitments, and any other letters of financial commitments between Mayor Fulmer, Vineyard, and LRS that may exist, so that a transparent, informed resolution can occur. In the meantime, it's respectfully submitted that it is inappropriate for Mayor Fulmer to serve as the chairperson of ULA, and equally inappropriate for the ULC and ULA to consider any proposals put forward by LRS, at least until this discrepancy is resolved. As a point of reference, a loan guarantee is clearly defined in the WIPIA handbook. Any guarantee or other pledge, pay all or part of the principal of and interest on a loan or other debt obligation issued by a borrower and funded by the lender. Thank you. Your public service is appreciated, and I'm happy to answer any questions at any point about this. And Mayor Fulmer, I hope to pronounce of the actual language from the WIPIA 2021, 2020, things like that.
You can send it to Eric. I appreciate it. You're welcome.
I'm Dean Chamberlain, I represent the Circle Springs Owners Association, and our association covers about 3 miles to the northwest shore of Utah Lake. I have one question about, is the Utah Lake Solutions LLC still an issue for the north and the west? But that's the lake project, or the island project in the middle. The dredging and so forth.
You know, it might be helpful, Sam, maybe you could write this question down and we could follow up.
Sure.
You might want to define the problem for us so that we can follow up.
So they, just a few words, they proposed to dredge the bottom of Utah Lake, tie up that dredge material in islands, about 18, maybe 20 islands, and with colonies and so forth. And I think that will essentially destroy the benthic biology of the lake and all of the organisms who come. And I looked at their both proposition, and it's based on dredging, people who dredge, lakes and so forth, and they call that dredging environmental dredging. But it's just environmental discussion, it doesn't cover restoration at all. LLC does not have to pay any program at all for restoration. It's just, I remember dredge people throughout the world. They call it environmental dredging, but it's not.
Thank you for that, clarity. Something also, if you keep your email on the sheet in the back, we can follow this one. We appreciate it.
I did give some comments to Dr. Ben Anderson, UIU, and his, he has a list of signatures, science and so forth, opposing that project. And I have also my comments opposing that project, supporting his comments. I have a copy of that. If you need it.
Yeah, please do, and then we can distribute it to the board. That'd be helpful. Thank you. It looks like we might be trying to appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Richard. I'm here today to talk to you to request the ULA board establish a finance and audit committee. The mission of this committee would be to assist the ULA from making questionable financial decisions and losing public trust as well as legislative trust. As reported recently, behest the Inland Port Authority and the results of its recent state audit. This committee should be charged with providing additional financial and compliance oversight over all ULA affairs, reviewing internal controls, approving internal reporting and financial documents, ensuring appropriate segregation of duties, recommending a delegation of authority policy, reviewing RFPs and all contracts over $25,000, and establishing a multiple bid process. Should be establishing a procurement policy and standard contract and SOW terms. It should achieve best practices in all matters of transparency, accountability, financial oversight, and internal controls. And it should determine the external audit schedule, scope of work, and selection of the audit firm. I propose membership in this committee include financial professionals using the SEC definition for audit committee financial experts. I am happy to volunteer my time to advise the board or any member on the structure and responsibilities of this committee. I am an SEC designated financial expert and a designated principal accounting officer in front of the SEC. So I thank you for your consideration to establish this finance and audit committee. If Sam will give me 10 seconds, I will just give you the 2 sentences from SOA section 407, which is the SEC's rules regarding a financial expert. They are a person who understands GAAP and financial reporting and internal accounting controls, understands audit committee functions, and candidates who have experience preparing public company financial statements qualify for this role. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay. Did we have any comments online, Sam?
I didn't see your release. Double check. No.
Thank you, Brittany. Well, I just need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved by Mayor Susie, second by Commissioner Lee, all in favor? Thank you so much for being here.